The philosopher and mathematician Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz said that the first question which should rightly be asked is, why is there something rather than nothing? So that's what we're going to cover in today's video. Before we go further, I think it's really important to clarify what philosophers mean by nothing. By nothing, we're not talking about empty space or a vacuum. We are meaning the complete absence of anything at all. No matter, no energy, no space, and no time. And so the question we're asking is not just, how did our universe begin? It is, why does anything at all exist? Leibniz argued that everything that exists has an explanation for why it exists. And he calls this idea the principle of sufficient reason. So things don't just exist for no reason at all. And according to Leibniz, the explanation for something's existence can be one of two things. So the first thing is that a thing exists necessarily because of its own nature. And this could include abstract things like numbers, mathematical truths, and logical laws. Examples include, the number 4, or the truth that 2 + 2 = 4, or the law of non-contradiction, which is the principle that a statement cannot be both true and false in the same way at the same time. All of these things exist abstractly, they're not physical objects, and they don't depend on anyone inventing them. The second category is that a thing could exist because of an external cause, and this includes physical objects like people, plants, planets, and galaxies. For example, we know that a tree grows from a seed, or a table exists because someone built it, or a star forms because of clouds of gas and dust. These are physical things, they change over time, they depend on other things in order to exist. So now our question becomes, what kind of thing is the universe? Does the universe exist necessarily, or does it exist because something caused it to exist, something external? Let's consider the first option. Is the universe a thing that exists necessarily? Well, it does not seem so. The things philosophers often describe as necessary, like numbers or logical truths, are, as we just discussed, abstract, unchanging. They're things that do not exist physically, and they don't begin to exist or stop existing. The universe, however, is physical, and it's constantly changing. Stars form and burn out, galaxies evolve, and the universe itself has been expanding over time from an extremely hot, dense beginning about 13.8 billion years ago. And the universe also appears contingent in other ways. There are many things in the universe that depend on earlier conditions in order to exist, and nothing that we currently know suggests that the universe had to exist with exactly these physical laws or exactly these elementary particles. And so because of this, the universe does not look like something that exists necessarily. It looks much more like something that depends on something else. So if the universe doesn't exist necessarily, then the most plausible explanation is that it exists because of something external. And so what might that explanation be? What might that external thing be? Well, the first thing we know is that it must be separate from the universe, because something cannot create a thing if it is part of the thing. For example, I'm able to build a table because I'm not part of a table. And so applying this to the universe, if the universe includes all space, time, and matter, then whatever caused it cannot be part of space or time or matter. Or in other words, it would not exist somewhere in space, it would not be limited by time, and it would not be made of matter like physical objects. So a second thing is that since the universe appears to have been begun at a particular point in time, then it would also need the ability to initiate that event. Because we know that automatic physical processes don't decide when something happens. For example, gravity does not choose when to pull a rock downward. It just happens whenever a rock is released. But the universe did begin at a particular moment in time. Again, we said about 13.8 billion years ago. And that suggests that a cause would need the ability to initiate the universe at that time rather than producing it automatically. And the only kind of thing we know that can initiate something in that way is a mind. Theists, of course, then call this mind God. A reasonable objection that often comes up here is, okay, but if God caused the universe to exist, then what caused God to exist? But that question is assuming that God belongs in that second category, that God is also the kind of thing that exists because of something external that caused God to exist. But it does seem more likely that if God is real, then God would belong to the first category, that that God would be something that exists necessarily rather than being caused. So first, the kind of cause we just described shares characteristics of things in that first category more than the second, right? God would not be a physical object since the universe includes all matter. A second thing to keep in mind is that if everything that exists needed a cause, then the chain of explanations would never end. Each cause would depend on another cause before it, and this would go on and on forever. So to illustrate this, we can imagine a stack of books, right? Each book is resting on another book underneath it, but eventually something has to hold up the entire stack, like a table or the floor or my hand, because otherwise the stack couldn't exist at all. And so in the same way, if every explanation depended on another explanation forever, nothing would ultimately explain why anything exists rather than nothing. Philosophers often conclude that there must be at least one reality that exists necessarily rather than being caused by something else for this reason. And again, theism identifies this necessary reality as God. The theologian and philosopher Thomas Aquinas, he said it like this: "There is no case known, neither indeed is it possible, in which a thing is found to be the efficient cause of itself, for so it would be prior to itself, which would be impossible. Now, in efficient causes, it is not possible to go on to infinity. Therefore, it is necessary to admit a first efficient cause to which everyone gives the name of God." So, quick recap. Everything that exists has an explanation for its existence. It exists either necessarily by its own nature or it was caused by something else. And then many philosophers argue that the universe does not exist by its own nature and that whatever caused it would need to be distinct from it, timeless, spaceless, immaterial, and capable of initiating the universe. So in my view, that sounds a lot like God, but I'm curious what you think. Why is there something rather than nothing? And do you think the universe needs an explanation for why it exists? I would love for you to share your thoughts in the comments. And of course, if you have other questions about this topic or other topics related to Christianity or want some clarification, please add that to the comments as well. And I will do my best to respond there or in a future video. And if you want to see any more content like this, you can click the subscribe button below the video and I'll see you next week.